Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. My name's Todd Zagorek. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm your service coordinator this morning. Please silence your phones if you haven't done that already. And this morning we will continue our month of exploring the theme of gratitude. And our minister, Reverend Tony Lorenzen, will reflect on the importance of pausing to rest and reflect in developing a practice of gratitude. Maybe you straggled in this morning or logged on this morning like me, bleary-eyed, a little hoarse, wondering how you're going to pay for all the stuff you bought at the auction last night. Or maybe you woke up feeling self-satisfied and a little smug and excited about all the cool bargains that you got. You know, whether you're on top of the world or down in the dumps a little bit, it's good that you're here. It's good to be here. It's good to be together. There's a place for you here. We'll make this a morning of celebration, of community, support, friendship, everything that it needs to be. And you can laugh and cry and share or be silent, whatever you need to do. As we gather this morning, we respectfully acknowledge, as always, that we are meeting on the homeland of the Peguesit people, who, by the way, still live and work among us as our neighbors. And we acknowledge them, and we commit to use this space for the good of the whole community. And now, before we get started, let's say hello to our friends online, and then to each other here in the fellowship hall also. Let's greet our neighbors, and then Zelda will ring our chimes to bring us back. All right, Zelda, thank you. That's fun. Announcements this morning are pretty quick. A big thank you to everybody who helped with the auction last night, the Copacabana. I had a ball, and if you had half as much fun as I did, then you still had an enormously good time. It was really fun. For other announcements, you can see your order of service, or you can check the This Week in UUCD newsletter, the events calendar on the website at uudanbury.org. You can find out what's going on. And now, we'll have our chalice lighting affirmation. We make this place holy just by being here together. And we start by lighting the chalice as a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And this morning, Zella will be our chalice lighter. And as she does so, please join me in the words of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life. Thank you, Zella. And now please rise, embody your spirit, and join in our hymn of welcome. We give thanks. It's number 1010 in the teal hymnal, if you've got that. And the words, of course, will also be on the screen.
This precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Gathered here
So good to be together. Good to see you this morning. Let's say the words for our children's affirmation. They're on the screen, and you can follow along for the motions. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. When we come into this space, we don't need to be in a hurry. There's no rush here. We can just settle in. And this morning, I'm going to teach you a mindfulness activity that you can do anywhere you are, whether you're walking, or you're sitting, or you're lying down. So I want to invite you now to participate as you feel willing and able. All things are always optional. And if we get to a part that's not accessible for you, that's okay. You can just bring your attention back to being in the room together. I invite you to look around the room. Just notice the colors, the corners, the things in the distance and the things nearby. Maybe notice 5 things you can see. And then if you wish, you can drop your gaze or close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And bring your attention to 4 things you can feel. This is the touch sense. 4 things you can feel. Maybe the chair underneath you. Maybe the clothing on your skin. You might feel something that needs to be adjusted, something that's a little uncomfortable. So if you find that, you can adjust. 4 things you can feel. And when you're ready, bring your attention to 3 things that you can hear or you've been hearing. And 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. You don't have to be able to name it, just something you can taste. And then for the next minute or so, find one of those senses you want to bring your attention to. And go ahead and just sit in attention to that sense. Thank you for your presence in this moment together with all of our senses. I'm going to invite Margie to come forward to light the lantern to bring our chalice light downstairs. And I'm going to invite Maisie to come forward and Nell to come forward to get baskets to collect your donations for Dorothy Day Hospitality House. If you have food, if you've brought food with you to give to Dorothy Day, please hold it up now, and the kids will all come around to collect it, and we'll sing This Little Light of Mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
The theologian and poet John O'Donohue writes, "Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter into the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of falsity. May the warmth of the heart keep your own presence aflame. May anxiety never linger within you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of your soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your spirit. May you experience each day as a gift woven around the heart of wonder." On Sundays, when we take a moment to share milestones here, we are helping each other call attention to that sacred gift woven in our hearts that pays attention to wonder and offers compassion to everything that is hurting. This morning, I invite you once again, if you wish to share a milestone silently, to come forward and place a stone. And when that's finished, we'll have an invitation for spoken. In our heart have been heard, and that people have been seen, and in recognition that there's always things that are left unspoken for various reasons. And for all the people in the world this morning who are hurting for various reasons, and for all those who are celebrating for the good they've encountered, let us raise our voices and join in singing "From You I Receive."
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Our reading today is an excerpt from the essay Third Places as Community Builders by Stuart M. Butler and Carmen Diaz. Third places have a number of important community building attributes. Depending on their location, social classes and backgrounds can be leveled out in ways that are unfortunately rare these days, with people feeling they are treated as social equals. Informal conversation is the main activity and the most important linking function. One commentator refers to third places as the living room of society. Many city planning efforts to reinvigorate metropolitan neighborhoods now include specific steps to create third places, especially public spaces, to try and break down social silos. And now it's time for our offering. When you give your time and your energy to the work of this congregation, you are giving gifts to each other. Everyone gives and receives gifts from all members and friends, and together we give to the community around us. Your generosity really does make a difference. It enables everything that happens here at UUCD. Think of the effect on young lives that our family ministry has in creating a safe and a fun place for them to be and a circle of friends. Think of the impression that the Black Lives banner and the rainbow flag make on the kids on their way to and from the high school. Think of our partnership with Danbury Unites for Immigrants, where we're providing comfort and help to families that are threatened with abduction and deportation. Think of the pastoral care and the counseling that Reverend Tony and Reverend Sierra Marie give. It's all behind the scenes stuff that we never even know about, but it makes a difference in people's lives. Think of the fun that you have at community dinners and at the auction. Your generosity makes all of that possible. So thank you very much. Lots of ways to give. The greeters will be, of course, passing the collection plates. There's a QR code. There is a link in the chat. There is Simple Give on the website, and you can always send checks to 24 Clapboard Ridge Road. Thank you very much.
My dog Pancake has developed an interesting habit over the last, say, 6 months or so. She's 11 now, and as she's just starting to get older for a dog, she has developing a couple of new habits we've noticed. One of them is she wakes up in the morning whenever one of us gets up, trots on downstairs, maybe has something to eat, follows us around getting coffee, and then sits down on her little dog bed and takes a nap. And this is so in keeping with her nature, however, though, because like all dogs, she loves to take a walk. And we frequently walk in a big public park near our house. And when she's done walking, she will find a spot under a tree that has a picnic table, because there are a bunch of picnic tables in the park. And she'll just sit there. And you cannot drag her away. This is 50 pounds. It feels like 500 if you're trying to get her to move, and she does not want to go anywhere. But her habit of doing this, of just sitting in the morning and just sitting in the park under her picnic table, looking out, enjoying everything, has really reinforced in me the attitude of gratitude for just being that obviously comes to her a lot more naturally than it does to me. She doesn't have any of those dog things getting, or human things getting in the way of her dog enjoyment of the world around her and just being thankful for it. It's the attitude of gratitude. And while I was in Portugal this summer, we spent some time in Kiosk, and I kept thinking how much my dog, Pancake, would have loved hanging out in the kiosks. And these are the kiosks. The kiosks are like a combination of snack bar, cafe, coffee shop, backyard patio, and pub. An old photomat booth surrounded by shaded tables and chairs. But unlike the old photomats you could see in the pictures, they have an aesthetic charm. Each a uniquely decorated individual Art Nouveau masterpiece. Pastel colors, wrought iron, Moorish points and curves, angles, azulejos, those Portuguese tiles. They're not fast food stands, although they sell food. You know, they're not the food cart you find on the street corner in New York City, although they do have food and drink. They're an oasis of slow food, an oasis of slow drink, conveniently placed where you need them. They have become an institution in themselves, and they are popular and beloved by locals and tourists alike. Not just for the food and drink they have, which is great, by the way, but more so for their vibe, their presence, their attitude. And it's an attitude of gratitude. They're a reminder to stop, sit, breathe, look around, find some things, feel your senses. What can you touch? The kiosks just invite you to do this. Smell the roses. The kiosks are for people definitely who do not live to work, but work in order to live. And you see a lot of people coming from work hanging out at them on their way home or at lunchtime. You know it's spring in Portugal when the kiosks open. These kiosks first appeared in Lisbon and then in other places in the late 19th and early 20th century, inspired by similar places in Paris and Vienna coffee houses, and the Art Nouveau movement in architecture and decor. And they very quickly became very popular among the people. They became spots for congregating, conversing, hanging out. They sold newspapers and lottery tickets and cigarettes and food and snacks. And then the Estado Novo, the fascist regime, took over Portugal in the 1920s. And they discouraged the kiosks because they were public places where people gathered and talked and shared information. And any authoritarian regime doesn't want people talking to each other and maybe sharing accurate information about things with each other, or, God forbid, ideas that the state doesn't agree with. So the Estado Novo slowly but surely kind of clamped them down, and the huts fell into neglect and disrepair. And when the dictatorship ended in the mid-1970s and Portugal joined what would eventually become the European Union, that time that European Economic Community, Portugal was for the first time kind of invaded by that corporate international brand name culture. McDonald's showed up for the first time. And as the country slowly modernized after the fall of the dictatorship, Things came along with that modernization. Things got a little dirty. Crime went up a little bit. Urban areas became in need of renewal. Some of the culture was being lost, including the siesta culture that is part of Portuguese and Spanish and Italian and other places where you need a midday break from the heat to eat, maybe take a nap. And that was starting to go away. So in Lisbon, a city councilor, Jose Fernandes, asked for proposals to open the kiosks again. And a journalist, Catarina Portas, became an entrepreneur and found an architect, João Regal, and they worked to restore and open the kiosks. And the first 3 opened in 2009, and they were an overnight sensation. A big hit. Their restoration and reopening soon became part of a plan in Lisbon called the Kiosk Strategy. And it involved not just the kiosk, but restoring the public gardens, creating and cleaning green spaces, expanding bicycle paths, making a place livable in a way that it hadn't been in decades. Against the rising tide of globalization and fast food and international branding and corporate chains, the revival of the kiosk provided a real alternative, an alternative that was based in local history, local culture, and local custom. You can certainly get wine and ice cream and sodas and lemonade and pizza at most of the kiosks, but they also started offering the old traditional foods that were served at the original kiosks and brought them back. Ginginha. It's a little tiny cup of cherry liqueur with a sour cherry in it. If you hit the right kiosk, you get it served in a chocolate cup that you can then eat afterwards. These kiosks know what they're doing. Limonada. Grosella made from red currants in syrup. Café Mazagran, coffee and lemonade. Never would have put those two together. It's really good. Made in hair leaves and orange blossom tea, almond horchata, all kinds of things, not to mention the usual bolas and pastel de natas and pastries and everything else. These places are amazing. And every time I was at one, I thought of Pancake sitting under her picnic table. I'm like, this is it. This is the picnic table in the park. They're everywhere here. I was in Portugal 17 days, and all but 3 of those days included a stop and a sit for a while at a kiosk because they're the greatest things ever. My favorites were the day we sat at the kiosk in the Praça Rosario, a huge plaza in Lisbon, dozens and dozens and dozens of tables around the kiosk. And we had limonadas and read our books in the shade. And we laughed with the small children, the family at the table next to us. And when we'd go up and refresh our limonada, we brought one and a pastry for the homeless person who was sitting at the table next to us. Because everybody was included. It was fascinating and inspiring. There was a kiosk in a tiny praça in the Príncipe Real neighborhood where on the night of the St. Anthony Festival, and if you bid on the St. Anthony Festival last night, you will experience this, we tried our first ginginha, the cherry liqueur. And we were included in a toast that another group of people at the table next to us was having. They just pulled us over. They didn't know who we were. They didn't know we were tourists, didn't know anything. They just pulled us over and we got wrapped into the toast and then we got wrapped into dancing. This is the kind of culture we got to have more of. This is really important. Perhaps my favorite kiosk was the one we went to in Évora, Portugal, where we sat and had a nice cold vinho verde after a day of sightseeing 20 yards from the ruins of a Roman temple, surrounded by other sightseers and people from town getting out of work nearby and coming by and sitting down, having a cold drink or a snack before they went home. Sitting in the kiosks and having coffee and wine and snacks. I noticed how like the coffee and wine culture there was very different from ours. In Portugal, people drink coffee around the clock. Not a big deal. And they do this because there, a cafe, is what we would call an espresso. So it's a lot easier to have lots of these during the day than the 16-ounce mug we put coffee in during the day. You can't do that all day. And in our culture, coffee is used a lot for stimulant, so we can be more alert, get more done, have more energy. But I noticed sitting in the kiosk something really interesting about coffee in Portugal, that it was not for energy, it was for stopping and talking. The coffee was almost a prop to say, hey, let's sit and chat. Let's linger. Let's be grateful for just being able to be here right now with each other. And it happened all the time, every time we stopped at one. This was going on all day long at these. Same thing for a glass of wine. I noticed sitting in the kiosks that people would have a glass of wine round the clock too. Maybe not in the morning, but anytime from midday on, you see somebody having a wine at the kiosk. But it wasn't for drinking like we might in our culture. It was for stopping and talking to somebody. And if you weren't sitting with somebody, talking to the people at the table next to you. It was like coffee hour that included everyone outside in the sunshine. It was really inviting. You know, we don't really have this in our culture. It's pub-like. You know, we have lots of bars in our culture where you can sit and have a drink and watch sports on TV in a loud atmosphere. We don't tend to have lots of pubs in our culture where you can sit with one pint and talk for a couple hours with somebody. But this was going on all day long, wherever you looked around the city. These kiosks would be in plazas. They would be in places of pedestrian walkways where they'd closed off streets. They'd be in parks. They'd even be up near tourist attractions. We went to one at the Castelo São Jorge at the top of Lisbon. There was one right up there. And so there's a place everywhere to stop and linger and breathe and be. We have places that maybe approximate this, but even like our coffee shops, a lot of times here you go into a coffee shop, and even in good ones, you'll see a lot of people sitting alone together. And what I noticed in the kiosk was if people were sitting alone, they really were alone together. They'd be chatting with the people at the table next to them or people walking by. It was really un-American in an awesome way. Because the thing about the kiosks, I realized, is they function as third places. A third place is a term coined by Ray Oldenburg, a sociologist, in a 1993 study he did called The Great Good Place. And he discusses the importance of these types of places, places that are not the first place, the place where you live, where you sleep, where you keep your stuff, or the second place, the place where you go do commerce or are employed, whether it's a location or a building or whatever. But the place beyond that, the third place, where you spend time, where you socialize, where you gather with others, where you tend to just be, not do, where you relax, where you engage in an uncoordinated personal experience of being and building community. Third places encourage social connection. And in our culture, some of the types of places that can function as third places are things like public parks. But our public parks don't have kiosks. Cafes, libraries now function, I think, as third places in a lot of places in America. Community centers, and even places sometimes like churches and congregations and synagogues and mosques and temples. Since Ray Oldenburg coined the term third places, another aspect about them has risen to the surface, is that they not be a silo. That if somewhere that might be a third place is only made up of people who are all the same attitudes, same demographics, it's not really a third place because you're not there with others. You're just there with another version of yourself in a group. And the thing you noticed about the kiosk is that everyone went, rich, homeless, everyone in between, locals, tourists, and everyone really was equalized. Even if it was for the 20 minutes you were at the kiosk, it was just a bunch of people hanging out together who might have no other connection with each other in any way. And you realized while you were there that everyone else got this too. It was just part of the energy of these places. And it made me realize once again that we are not a siesta culture. We don't like to stop. We don't have that tradition of stopping in the middle of every day. Lunch in Portugal, depending on where you are and what the local culture is, lasts anywhere between 12 and 2 and 12 and 4. We can't get away with that here. Our culture doesn't invite it. Climate-wise, we don't, in most of the country, get hot enough to kind of need the break from being out there. But our culture and the way we've set up to always be producing and doing and making and functioning almost repels that siesta culture, something we could really work on fixing. Kiosk culture is slow. It emphasizes the slow living movement, connection, reflection. And from these comes gratitude. It really does change your attitude. It helps you go with Pancake and sit under the picnic table and just look at the park and be perfectly satisfied with that. Doesn't matter if Tony has to go to church in another half hour and get something done. We're sitting right here. We know the neurobiology of gratitude is that it stimulates the rest and digest response as opposed to the fight or flight response. So that practice of gratitude in a place that's kind of designed, built on purpose for you to rest and digest is great for emphasizing the importance, the recognition of giving thanks just for being there. Now, you may be thinking, all of this is great, Reverend Tony, but we have to live in the real world. Well, that's the whole point I think I'm trying to make, is that we've been brainwashed into thinking the real world is the world of individualism and business and profit and accomplishing things and consuming and always making and always doing and always functioning and always being part of the economic wheel. And it's not. Kiosks and that culture they inspire, that attitude of gratitude says, step out of the matrix. It's not lazy. It's not irresponsible. In fact, it's in a sense revolutionary. You tell the world of economic exploitation at all levels to take a hike when you sit at a kiosk. We've been programmed to always be making and doing and producing and achieving, so much so that we equate human value with production and how much money we make and what job we have. Quantity. The kiosk culture says to all that, we want quality. Kiosk culture, gratitude culture, is an act of resistance against a political and economic and cultural system based on a hierarchy of wealth and power. And the view that the individual, not as a human being, not as a citizen, but a commodity, a depersonalized consumer of goods and services. And there's no inherent human dignity and worth in that system. In his book, Sabbath as Resistance, Columbia Theological Professor Emeritus Walter Brueggemann says that rest on the Sabbath is an act of revolution and resistance against the economics of exploitation, which is basically what our practice of capitalism in our culture has become. Sitting in kiosks, I thought a lot about my dog and a lot about Sabbath, which is one of my most favorite religious ideas from any tradition in the world. A day of rest. And not just of rest, but of savoring life, of being alive, of thanks to God, of thanks for what you have, of thanks for being there. Kiosk culture is a Sabbath culture, a culture that even here on the Sabbath, which is not really the Sabbath, but you know what I mean, we've kind of lost. In the Talmud, a collection of Jewish wisdom and commentary from the early centuries of the Common Era, the Sabbath is described as, and I love this, somewhat like eternity. Isn't that the greatest? That rest, that attitude of gratitude, that stop, that's somewhat like eternity. It's forever in a moment. Sitting under the umbrella of our table at the kiosk next to the Roman ruins in Evora, I remembered from reading Abraham Joshua Heschel that when the Romans first encountered the Jewish people, they thought they were nuts, absolutely out of their mind, bonkers, unstable, unwell, and ridiculous because of this Sabbath thing that they did. Because in Roman culture, they believed you achieved immortality by accomplishing great deeds and doing great things that people would tell after you died. And if you took a day off every 7 days, that's 1 out of 7 days you're not accomplishing stuff. Boy, that sounds familiar. But the Jewish people who developed that practice of Sabbath, they understood intrinsically that that kind of immortality, that can't be bought. You can't purchase that with deeds. That kind of immortality was lived in a moment that was somewhat like eternity. Forever in the right now. And that's why Sabbath was so important. Abraham Joshua Heschel writes in his book, The Sabbath, that the Sabbath is about conquering time. The danger begins when in gaining power in the realm of space, we forfeit aspiration in the realm of time. He says the realm of time is where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong, he says, when the control of space, the acquisition of things becomes our concern, instead of the spending well of our time. He says to enter the holiness, the sacredness of the practice of Sabbath, you have to put down commerce, unchain yourself from toil, turn off the noise of our dissonant days and the anxiety of acquisitiveness. And he says, and I love this term from him, you have to turn away from the betrayal of embezzling from your own life. Isn't that great? What the Sabbath does is it makes you turn away from embezzling the value of your own life. Because your life is valuable in and of itself. You don't need to have a job and work 30 hours a week to justify getting SNAP benefits. You're worthy of that as a human being. Maybe our divorce from Sabbath and rest and chaos and gratitude is that we still hold people's value to be connected to things that has nothing to do with their value. Heschel says we must understand the world was created without our help, and it will go on just fine without us. When we take time out from the crush of business that's our usual existence and let ourselves be present, wholly right here, there in front of people, present to ourselves, to family, to friends, to the sacred and truly engage in meaningfulness beyond consumerism and the valueness of things, we step into the immensity and totality of eternity. It's not somewhat like eternity, it is eternity in the here and now, for a moment, a forever in an instant. When we open our hearts, grateful for the vision and perspective sitting in eternity gives us, it fosters that attitude of gratitude for just being right here, right now. Sabbath culture and kiosk culture and gratitude culture cultivate a thankfulness. And if we're kept busy all the time with little time for gratitude and little time for generosity, we create a culture that is shut off, divided, antagonistic, guarded, and at each other's throats. We must sit at the kiosk or under the picnic table, whatever works for you, and give thanks for the sunshine, the cafe, the vino verde, the limonada, the pastry, your companions, your family, your friends. Make the moment forever and be grateful for it. For it really is somewhat like eternity. It's like sitting in a kiosk on a Sunday afternoon.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the power of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. And please now rise in body or spirit for our hymn of celebration, number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad.
Our service is over, but our service to the world renews once more. Take a little time, create a little kiosk culture, coffee hour, and go in peace.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Sing it if you know it. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Climbing the walls when no one calls, you've lost it, love again. And the more you're down and out, the more you need a friend. When you longed, hello. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
That's why we have name tags.